if you ask a bass fisherman, especially professional, say, man, if you could have one lure to fish all year, all across the country, what would it be? And probably at 90% of us, or maybe even closer to 100, would say, well, if you had to give me one, I would take a jig. You know, I could make it different colors. I can do different things with it, but a jig is really one of the most versatile baits. This last year on the Elite Series, I think I weighed fish on a jig in every tournament except St. Clair. And I think I even weighed a fish or two in on my lax on a jig. I may not have. The tournament was actually won on a jig. Apparently I should have. But I mean, I think I weighed fish in every single Elite Series tournament except those couple. In St. Clair, I mean, it was smallmouth and offshore, and you could have caught fish on a jig, but it wasn't what I was doing there. But that truly is, and I think that speaks volumes as to just how versatile a jig is. I caught a lot of fish swimming a white jig throughout the year last year. We fished a lot of different places and times when there was a shad spawn going on, and that was a good thing to do. I caught them at Okeechobee, flipping a jig some there, and that swimming a white jig there as well, and caught them on like a punch skirt rig, which is basically a jig. But so, yeah, you really can't say it enough just how versatile a jig is, and that it works from when we started the year at Cherokee and 45-degree water. I caught a couple fish there that I weighed in on the 3rd and 4th days up the river flipping, and you know, I caught them all throughout the year. So it really is one of the most effective and most versatile tools in your box. And it's a few reasons as to why. I mean, it can imitate everything a bass eats. Anything a bass eats in the water, you can match a jig to look like it. From the obvious ones of crawfish, that's when you see a jig, especially a brown jig, you automatically think crawfish, and that is one of the best imitators of crawfish out there. To a white jig, you know, that you fish and it looks like bait fish, to one that's got some green pumpkin and blue and looks more like a bluegill for a swim jig. And then a black and blue that I still don't know what it looks like, but they sure do bite it. You literally can catch fish around any type of cover on a jig, and with them being as weedless as they are, they work for a lot of that. And docks are one thing that this past season, I think back to it and how many fish I caught swimming a white jig around boat docks, and it was one of those years that was just lined up really good for that. But also around riprap, man, I caught a ton of fish on a jig on riprap, and I think that's something that most people don't typically do with it, especially swimming a jig. They want to always swim a jig around grass, but man, you can really catch a lot of fish on just hard cover with a jig swimming it as well. That's something that I don't do as much as I should, but I did a lot more this year and learned a lot about it. But even just plain old mud banks, a tournament we won at home one time in the fall a few years back. One of the biggest fish we caught that day was on just a plain mud bank, swimming a green pumpkin jig. So that's the good part about it. You never know where you're liable to catch one off of. All right, Bill. The pros jig, yeah, that for me, I'm going to fish it in the 3/8 to 3/4. I carry the quarter with me in the truck sometimes, but it's not very often that I ever will drop down to a quarter, even for swimming this jig. If I want to keep it that shallow and slow in the water column, I'm just going to go up on my line size. I'll probably go up to 20 or something to be able to keep that bait up high in the water column. Even swimming it sometimes on braid, that'll help me keep it up in the water column. So 3/8 to 3/4 is pretty much what I carry anymore. Like I said, if I'm going to be flipping something more than 3/4, I'm probably going to be doing it with a punch skirt. You know, I'm going to be rigging it up that way because the cover is going to dictate that if I'm needing a 1 ounce jig to get it to the bottom, the cover's so thick I'll be better off with a punch skirt. And again, this one does it all well. I mean, this is a one-stop shop basically for jig fishing. You can buy this and you can swim it, cast it, drag it. You can do a little bit of everything with it. All right, Billy. Football jig. Somebody's got it back through there, but that one, this is they make it in 3 sizes: a quarter, or a half, 3/4, and 1 ounce. And I put deep water / casting because you don't have to fish this in deep water. I've caught a lot of fish on a football jig in 2 or 3 feet of water. I think of a place like Kentucky or Barkley, and I mean, sometimes those fish are on those ledges that are up, you know, they're up really, really shallow, but they don't want to bite something moving. And you can certainly catch them on a jig up there up shallow on those ledges at times. And that football jig, if I'm not fishing in heavy brush, that's the jig I'm going to go to. There's something about that head shape, and I really don't understand it well enough to know exactly what it is, so I'm not going to make it up. But there's something about that head shape.
Welcome to Bass University TV, an online video training course where you'll learn champion bass fishing techniques from pro anglers Pete Glusek, Mike Iaconelli, and their talented special guests. From on the water to in the classroom, you'll learn sound techniques and strong fundamental bass fishing skills. Watch hours of video content on multiple topics at your own pace for a low monthly fee. Cancel at any time. Information is power in the sport of fishing, so learn from the very best. Subscribe to Bass University TV today.